Sound Cartel.
It can be too easy not to check your email lists or to send one too many marketing emails promoting your third campaign of the week. But what happens when you disregard unsubscribe notices numerous times over the best part of a year? Well, if you're reported to the Australian Communication and Media Authority, you'll know all about it. From Sound Cartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. In early July 2020, the Woolworths Group was fined $1 million for significantly breaching spam laws, the highest amount ever issued by the Australian Communication and Media Authority, or ACMA. In this particular case, ACMA found 5 million breaches of the Spam Act between 2018 and 2019 by Woolworths when it sent marketing emails to consumers after they had unsubscribed. Nerida O'Loughlin is the chair of the ACMA, and she didn't hold back when the findings were made public, calling the scale and prolonged nature of the non-compliance inexcusable. The implications of this ruling permeate down to small and medium businesses who also need to ensure that they stay within the law and not breach their responsibilities to clients and customers. Under COVID, we're also handing over our details more than we ever have. How should businesses be treating this information and considering people's privacy? We find out later. First, Nerida begins by telling me what made the breach by Woolworths particularly egregious.
Look, there are a number of factors that characterise the Woolworths breach. I think firstly, Woolworths is a mature and well-established brand. It's a large-scale marketer, and it certainly has the resources in place to ensure compliance with the Spam Act. The spam laws have been around for a long time, so these are not surprising new laws to companies of the size and scale of Woolworths. Secondly, the scale and the duration of the non-compliance was significant in our view. Our investigation found over 5 million breaches over a 9-month period, during which time Woolworths conducted large-scale marketing activity, including to consumers who tried to unsubscribe, some on multiple occasions, so constantly trying to get out of that marketing loop and still receiving marketing messages. Thirdly, we at the ACMA had given compliance alerts to Woolworths on multiple occasions. So we'd already told them that we were getting consumer complaints, and we think these should have alerted Woolworths that it had perhaps system or process problems, and it could have taken the opportunity to fix its issues before we had to go further. And finally, some of the consumer complaints coming to the ACMA that led to our investigation not only indicated the frustration that people had after trying to unsubscribe, but also some of the very deeply personal reasons people have for not wanting to receive the marketing that they were receiving from Woolworths. So while the ACMA has the option of taking non-compliance to the federal court, in this case we accepted that Woolworths acknowledged the issues that we had, the issues that the investigation highlighted, and it demonstrated to us that it was able and willing to put in place better systems, better processes and better practices. So Woolworths has paid to the ACMA an infringement notice of more than $1 million and also given us a court enforceable undertaking to ensure its compliance in the future. We think that this enforcement action not only sends a strong message to Woolworths, but should put other businesses on notice that compliance with the Spam Act is not optional.
So then what do Woolworths have to do now as a result of the $1 million fine and the strong rebuke of their actions from the ACMA?
At its very simplest, Woolworths must comply with the law, and it needs to act to respect the rights of its customers. So in addition to the infringement notice, Woolworths has committed to a number of actions under its court enforceable undertaking. It will appoint an independent consultant to review all its systems, processes and procedures. It will identify and implement any improvements identified by that consultant, and it will report regularly to the ACMA about those improvements. It also has to report on all instances of non-compliance to the ACMA until the undertaking ends, which is not until 2023. We will also be closely monitoring Woolworths' compliance with the Spam Act and whether it's meeting its commitments with its undertakings. And of course, if it does not comply with those undertakings, we may consider further court action.
So, what are you hoping the impact of this case has on communications practices for small to medium businesses?
Look, we're hoping that this action serves as a reminder to all businesses that they need to take their obligations under the Spam Act seriously. All businesses need to know that they can't just set and forget their processes. Things can change in a business. Your marketing practices might change, and you might do that without seeing that you haven't adjusted the systems and processes you've got in place to make sure you're compliant with the Spam Act. So we're hoping it's encouraging all businesses to make sure when they're making changes that they are looking at their compliance activities and processes as well. So in the case of Woolworths, the majority of its breaches were a result of it having multiple Woolworths Rewards members using the same email address. So I think the learning in the Woolworths case is that businesses need to understand where they have more than one person registered under the same email address or the same phone number. The law states that when any user of that account unsubscribes, the address must be completely unsubscribed. And those requests to unsubscribe must be actioned within 5 business days.
From the start of COVID-19, we've seen the spam rate increase dramatically. Why is this, and what can businesses do to stay out of trouble?
During the period from 1 April to 30 June this year, we found that complaints about telemarketing fell by around 16%, while complaints about spam, that is through SMS or email, rose 8%. And we think that's very likely to be indicative of the way the pandemic has impacted the commercial sector, so that many call centres have been closed or shut down, and many businesses have pivoted to online sales models. But businesses, when they do that, need to make sure that they understand the spam laws before engaging in any electronic marketing. And commercial electronic marketing is generally prohibited in Australia unless a business has consent or the marketing is sent by an exempt entity. We also have some evidence that parts of the financial services industry are now targeting people financially affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We're seeing complaints about payday lenders and those wishing to capitalise on the availability of superannuation until the end of the year for those experiencing financial hardships. So again, really be careful of what you're being asked for information and who's coming to you with SMS and emails during this period, and that they're not taking advantage of vulnerable customers during this terribly troubling time for people.
We've also increased the number of businesses that we give our personal information to, largely for contact tracing purposes. But what are the privacy laws around this? Legally, what can they do with this data?
Our colleagues at the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner have responsible for compliance with the Privacy Act, and they've developed a large range of advice and guidance on privacy and freedom of information in the context of COVID-19. So I suggest that people are interested in making sure they're compliant with the Privacy Act, contact the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. That said, in relation to e-marketing, as a general rule, we encourage individuals who are thinking of giving their email addresses or their mobile phone numbers to a business to make sure they understand what they're signing up for. Individuals can ask to see a privacy policy or terms and conditions, and consumers should make a complaint to the ACMA if they believe they've received commercial email or SMS without their consent. Contact tracing is playing an invaluable role during COVID, but those people who are doing that contact tracing have set up systems, processes and applications to make sure that it's keeping your data private. But don't be fooled by left field requests for information that might pretend to be contact tracing but may not be. And please just look into where those messages are coming from. Be cautious. It's your data and it's your personal information, but make sure you know what you're signing up for. But those important contact tracing apps and approaches by government are really critical for you to be engaged in so that we can track where cases are emerging and deal with those as effectively as possible.
So, what are the rules for spam that businesses must follow before contacting people?
So the sending of commercial electronic messages is prohibited in Australia unless you have consent or the message is sent by an exempt entity. So to comply with the law, you must generally have the consent of the account holder of the email address or the telephone number. You have to include clear contact details in the message to enable the consumer to contact your business. And you have to provide an unsubscribe option, and you must action request to unsubscribe within 5 business days. On the consent issue, we found in late 2019 a company, One Flare, could not prove it had consent, resulting in an infringement notice of more than $75,000 and, again, a court enforceable undertaking from the company. So businesses really who are relying on consent to conduct e-marketing, you bear the burden of proof that you have the consent. Unfortunately, we often find, or sometimes find, that a business's record-keeping practices are insufficient for it to demonstrate that it had consent. So again, the onus is on the business to prove that it has the consent of the consumer. In the Spam Act, there are also laws prohibiting the use of address harvesting software or obtaining or using marketing lists gathered through such software.
Now, some businesses do get our permission using tricky or confusing language. What do we need to look out for in this instance?
It's just good business to let your customers or prospective customers know what they're signing up for through clear and easily accessible terms and conditions. Australians are making it increasingly clear they want and expect agency over the use of their data, and they don't want to receive messages for which they haven't consented. Consumer complaints are a key source of intelligence for the ACMA, and we generally contact all businesses that are subject of complaints to remind them about their obligations. And I mentioned earlier that we did that a number of times in the case of Woolworths, but unfortunately they chose not to change their practices to address those alerts that we gave them. The ACMA has sent more than 3,600 alerts to date this year for telemarketing and spam messages where we've received complaints and passed those on to businesses to investigate. If we continue to get complaints from consumers or there are apparent serious or systematic issues involved, the ACMA can investigate, and where we find non-compliance, the penalties can be very large, as Woolworths recently found out the hard way.
That was Chair of the Australian Communication and Media Authority, Nerida O'Loughlin. For more information on the Spam Act, compliance, or for complaints about spam, head to acma.gov.au. Or for more information on privacy, go to oaic.gov.au. Both links will also be available in the show notes of this episode. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at Sound Cartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
Sound Cartel.